Thank you so much, Jacques, for that introduction. And thank you for the poem as well. That was beautiful. And thank you everyone for being here. I'm so excited to be able to share poems with you tonight. It's been a very exciting day here. Those of you who are on my social media things will have seen that I shared my book cover today, which was very exciting for me. So I'll give you a quick sneak peek. If I stop my video, you can see a piece of it as my profile picture. But it's available online. So I'm very excited to be giving you a pre-launch peek here tonight for Slaughterhouse, which is my debut collection. I will just give a blanket warning that there are poems that might be triggering to you. And if that's the case, please do whatever you need to look after yourself. I am dealing with topics on slaughter, obviously, on death and grief and all of those heavy things that poetry does so well. So you are welcome to step out if you need to. Then I will begin and we'll take it from there. The slaughterhouse speaks to the poet. You have been inside me, though neither of us were given a choice. You know how white I am. You know how much I love to shine, how I glow when I am as spotless as a polished gun. Do you think they chose my red brick exterior on purpose? Is it meant to camouflage the truth of the life I have drained away? When I have only the chilled carcasses and the cold night air for company, I exhale. Don't feign surprise. You must know I hold my breath for the blood. We are the same, you and I, both architects of death. I am of superior design. I will outlast you. You who named yourself kind while wielding words as blade. You do not blink as you gut the truth. Exhume the body of memory. Call me loss, call me graveyard for carnage, call me home for the murdered. It does not matter. Death takes getting used to. I see the way it feeds you. Now reach for paper before comfort settles in. Dissect me over and over on the page. So that poem, I guess what I'm hoping it communicates is just that thought on the way we think art must come from tortured places and how sometimes we harp on our sadness or our traumas or whatever in order to create. And obviously that is a poem that comes from that kind of place, but it's also that kind of questioning of why do you sit here in this slaughterhouse for so long? You're obsessed with me, I'm not obsessed with you, kind of thing. It's what I'm imagining the slaughterhouse telling me. Then on to another poem. This is one of the oldest poems that are in my collection. I wrote it back in 2018. It's been rejected many times and never got accepted somewhere other than obviously being part of the collection now. So it's still a poem that has a special place in my heart. Jacarandas. The ice cream shop where she was the sweetest thing I'd ever tasted slips by my window. Her hand, a memory on my thigh as I drive past now. I can still see our picnic blankets spread out beside the dam. Can see us ensconced in our own private world. I am sipping on her jacarandas, those lilac blooms of luck and the night of the exhibition when we walked between them, ending up outside the mathematics buildings. Somehow we were so uncalculated that later we steamed up my car in a dark corner of the campus parking lot. Each time I see that purple head of petals, I picture the green of her eyes, the midnight of her dress. My city, our city. My room, our room. Those walls absorbed her touch. They've been echoing it back to me ever since. Yes, even the grass grows in blades of her name here beneath the tree once strung with fairy lights, where now my Valentine flutters to the ground, a dead leaf dry and browned. Pretoria, your streets are just streets now. And then another poem that started in a very different form, much longer, and has ended up in a more compact version for the book. Sometimes I wish we never met. Sometimes I wish I never knew the soft way a woman could bloom beneath the ballet of my fingertips. How a single bed could stretch to become a landmass, a home of skin and breath. This woman, my favorite inhale, her air in my lungs, a lifeboat. Sometimes I wish I never knew the word merge, had not cradled it in my arms, had not tasted it on my tongue, had not imagined our house and the dogs, the lifetimes of mornings she would gift me. Sometimes I wish I could shrink these memories into a pebble, swallow it to be bodied and buried in the bowels of me. There's a few poems in the book that are focused on my work as a vet, and especially that interaction between life and death that I see a lot. Other than soldiers, vets are kind of the only profession that have to kill as part of their job. I don't see it as killing always, it's a mercy. So it's, you know, there's a difference, of course. But yeah, there's a few poems that talk about that from various aspects. And this is one of those. And this is called The Veterinarian Prepares. A black rubber mat coffin is hidden beneath a blue blanket, bursting with stars, soft as puppy breath. Someone is going to say goodbye. This is the thing that precedes the funeral, and yet it is the funeral too. I am the giver of bad news, their only guide in releasing another being from the untreatable riddle of this existence. The full box of white tissues rests in one corner, within easy reach. A sapphire blue stethoscope curls against my neck, the one that will name him officially gone. Today, the world is full of love that ends. Today, I cannot turn it off, the grief. I'm deciding all over again to help my now forever falling schnauzer leave this life, the one who taught me how to love for 13 years. Today, I am back kneeling in the straw 5 years ago, feeling that first body, warm and beating, go limp beneath my hands. The living I could not cure, my first death. Today, I am choosing peace, advising it. I rehearse before an audience of empty syringes. The sunlight digs its way through the window to hold me warm for a moment before I open the door, to let the room enfold his family as he finishes the walk he must take alone. Then the next poem is a sestina. A sestina, for those of you who don't know, is an old form that involves 6 repeated words in a specific pattern through 6 stanzas of 6 lines. And then the final 7th stanza is a tercet, so 3 lines that use all 6 words. They're obviously challenging, but I really enjoy them because for me, it feels like doing a word puzzle. And I found that they are a fun activity when I'm not really sure what to write about, because I'm forced to kind of come up with something that ends on this specific word or uses these words. So this is one of those sestinas, and this is one that I actively sat down to try and write something that would fit in the theme of this book. So this is a slaughterhouse sestina. On the first day, I count the bodies, calculate the square foot per pen, and multiply that by the number of hours I am forced to be here, in this house of blood, where life is turned into product. Sheep become meat which hangs in chillers, the carcasses in rows as long as they are wide. They block the exits. I do not belong here, watched by these heavy eyes. 600 sheep embody awareness, but are not aware of the end they will meet, of what awaits up the conveyor, life unpenned from its previous existence. My past existence is bleeding out from memory. What was mine belongs to the system now, hours spent counting, until I stop. I know they are not ours, and I cannot hold up the lives lost anymore. No long addition will make this any better. The blood we've spilled. It stains the white walls, nobody able to remove the red. It pins me to this place. I am one of them now, meeting all the criteria of beast. Stamp me meat. I am good only for slaughter. Leave me hanging for hours. I do not deserve burial nor eulogy penned in my name. I have already been consumed. I'm long swallowed by the system. I am just another body in the line. I do what I'm told, bleeding on order. Leave me to bleed. I deserve nothing more. If you meet a saint who claims to be me, turn away. I am not somebody anymore. I pace for hours, give myself over to meaninglessness, longing to reverse, to undo, to forget. I cannot pen myself into forgiveness. Again, I am unpenned by this memory, playing on repeat like blood in my veins, a bleat for my unbelonging. I am a shadow, meeting myself in the light for the first time. I am haunted by hours at the slaughterhouse. They were living bodies. After 500 hours watching bodies hung to bleed, I cannot meet my own eyes. My guilt is kept penned in the dark of my unbelonging. I hope everyone's still doing all right. There will be some lighter ones. My collection is divided up into two sections, so slaughter and house, obviously coming from slaughterhouse. And so slaughter is talking about the things in life that break us down, the hard things that we have to overcome, etc. And house is the coming home, the surviving, the getting through. So this reading is also kind of divided into those parts, and that means that lightness is coming towards the end. So hang in there. The next poem is a poem that was originally written backwards, but then that backwardsness didn't serve it, so now it's written forwards. And this is called The Drive. Tomorrow is the day, I tell her. My bag is packed. I am in bed, 9 p.m. as another week at boarding school looms ahead of me. I lie awake, sleep interrupted by the rush hour of my mind. I am tormented by the dark imagined reactions she could give. The way the rainbow will drain from her face, replaced by tears for the daughter she won't watch walk down the aisle to her husband. My eyes are as still as a closed closet door, staring at the ceiling above my single bed. It is dawn, and I crumple up the 20th letter, none of them finding the bravery I need. Each is its own memento of defeat. The car door closes and we are alone. An hour-long drive stretches out before us, its map still unmarked by the truth of how I love. My breath holds itself while a flamboyant shrub dances past the window. Then the telephone pole I would tell her by shrinks in the rearview mirror, waving its wires at me, mocking my cowardice. There is a righteous tree on the horizon, and then the tree is next to us and my breath stumbles out into the hushed morning air. I decide to tell her tomorrow. More than 2 years and 5 months between us now. Once we could make an adventure out of anything. The heap of soil at the bottom of the garden became an archaeological dig, complete with rock fossils chiseled free. The swimming pool hosted mermaid aerobics, survivor challenges, and grocery stores that specialized in high-quality foamy water. There was a brick long drop and fire pit in the cavern of trees we'd only venture into in the daylight. We could pull mud out of anything, mold clay into magic wands. There was no tree we couldn't climb, no cloud we couldn't tap with our toes as we swung ever higher on the swing our dad built us. From the roof, we would launch plastic bag parachuted rock men down to the flower beds below. The hibiscus's lithe branches just supported our weight as we competed with ants and bees to suck the nectar from the stamens of the blushing red flowers first. We were monkeys or birds or carefree time wasters, a costume that only suits the young. Now, you are a spontaneous adventurer. Couch surf Europe, wake at sunrise to plunge into the frigid Atlantic. I save towards a house deposit, schedule plans a week in advance, feed you meals where you only ever talk about yourself. I volunteer nothing. My life, a chest kept closed. The lonely cry of the wind-riddled air in the city we both live in is the soundtrack to my memories, and all the space that echoes with where my brother used to be. The good thing is that sometimes writing a poem like that can result in healing, and that poem I actually shared with my brother, and since then we have been a lot closer, and he's been a lot better at not just talking about himself, but also asking me about myself. So it did what it needed to do, and getting it out on the page was the first step. All right, we're nearly through the heavy stuff. This next one is another form poem. This form is an abecedarian, which is basically an acrostic poem using the whole 26 letters of the alphabet. So each line starts with A, B, C, etc. Obviously, on the page you see that, and listening to it you don't. So buy my book and then you can see it. Abecedarian for Death by Euthanasia. After I give release, the body becomes a decision made. It is now corpse, a memory to dig a hole for or to scatter in a garden. In death, there is no pain, no tails to wag or faces to lick, no excitement, only stillness. Once breath fades, I remove all mark that I was here. I am giver of an ending. My instruments have no place beside the already dead. I cover, shroud with a blanket, just right so that it cradles the head, keeps all that emptiness warm. Love looks a lot like letting go, sometimes. I touch an arm. My job is to make that easier, the need to hold on, the inability to face that it is over, that no one will wake you at 6 a.m. to go out to bark anymore. I place them down with the gentleness of a lover. Let those left behind collapse, quiet as ashes on the ground. I am the wall they lean on, the foundation, their rock. I am the only one still standing in these final moments after life has left the room. Twisted as it may sound, the body understands. Make space for the leaving from the very beginning. The last breath of relief has become my most trusted sound. When my time comes, I hope to be held exactly as I've held these creatures before, calm yet gentle, certain yet compassionate, a zone of everything will be okay. You can go now. You guys can't go though, I'm still busy. All right, then we have to have, of course, a love poem. And this poem is written about the first holiday my love and I took together. Alexander Bay, Northern Cape. Just to set the scene, if anyone's been in the middle of nooks and narrowns far up in the Northern Cape, then picture that. We are still so new that we have not yet named what is blooming between us. I have asked with no diamond to Arthur, but she is cautious, afraid that naming it will tar the road of us into a dead end. We are on our first road trip together, her car the red of a dozen roses. My hand traces love letters on her thigh as we cross over 700 kilometers of desert and coastline. Together we are a splash of yellow blooms in a landscape dehydrated to Gothic scrub and sand. On our third day, my love drives us to the northwesternmost corner of our country, a small brown smudge on the map, Alexander Bay, a forgotten tumbleweed in amongst the oases of better places to be. To enter, we must pass through a security gate flanked by barbed wire segregation. We sign away our previous existence, promise till death do us part not to beg, borrow, or steal diamonds. Naturally polished and proposing riches, they slip out here at the Orange River mouth. This town guards them with its dead ends and grey paper houses. The river is unreachable. The ocean locked away behind a desperation of dunes. The horizon is indistinguishable. Sky and earth the same color brown. My love holds her breath beside me, panicked, feeling trapped in this desert that ends here at the driest town in South Africa. I will never come back here again, to this hole where dreams go to die. But right now, she is all I have dreamt of, sitting in the car beside me. And I know I will visit 1,000 more shitty corners of this world if it means I can visit them with her. In a post-gender-based violence world of survivors, after Danae Smith. The word no has no alternate definitions, interpretation not up to the listener. I do not spare my no to the man at the market. Here our braless smiles reach our eyes. They are fists filled with sunflowers, our throats choked in glittering trinkets spelling out alive. Day and night are equals, not only in street-like islands of safety, but in the dark corners now wandered alone. Love is still a risk to the heart, but there is no violent thumping. Bruise is a color of eyeshadow we wear for a night out. Dressed as survival, we are all dancing. An awe of women in crop tops, miniskirts and freedom, or in comfort and sweatpants. Our bodies are not welcome mats. Men ask permission to enter here. Little girls make it home from school. We grow old. This next poem is also another of the older poems in the book, also one that I wrote in 2018, but I have since edited it a lot in order to get it up to my current standards. So it's also one of my favorite, I think. And I know Jacques enjoys this one as well. So this one's for you, Jacques. Blue. I call myself crazy, bonkers, demented, a nutcase, misunderstood and abnormal. I walk beyond sunset in the freezing rain just to keep my body busy. Don't ask me why, I don't think of alternatives. Every time I feel, my mother is sure to remind me, Melissa, you are so much, just calm down. Once I ran barefoot down the burning black tar in a dress when my stored belongings were dumped in a hallway by a new housemate. She morphed our pantry into her walk-in closet. That's a true story. My mother tells me that as a baby, I cried so hard that I stopped breathing. Also a true story. Turned blue, the air refusing to find a home in my lungs. I passed out limp. This is to say that I've always been intense. I imagine a lifetime with a woman and then lose her in only 9 days. I hold on to memories for 19 months. I regret scraping creme brulee into a toilet 7 years ago. I stand beside bodies of water and let them paint my face blue with shadow and sky. My emotions give birth to emotions of their own until I am a whole family tree of sadness with an asylum of tears dripping off my chin. It's attractive. The Insta poets say I should give myself permission to exist in my emotions, to sit and write what I feel. So I walk when I need to walk. I take moments of silence and I scream down the phone at my mother, who has seen me at my bluest. She still doesn't understand the way my bones rattle and my breath escapes me, but she tries really hard to make sympathetic noises anyway. I shower karaoke my other names, funniest person in the world, according to me, tender friend, not giver upper, tortured artist who should do more art and less torture, Busy Bee, blue. That's a fun one. And then obviously I'm going to bring the mood down again because that's poetry. This is also one of my favorite poems, and I'm excited for you to see it on the page as well when you get the book, because that's also, I really love how it looks. Widow. 2 generations older than us, she chooses our lunch table, takes a seat between a couple of strangers. My fiance and I are talking about our future wedding, how we must sign for our love in a disinterested office. And I'm still wondering why she chose to sit with us, this lone woman with starving eyes, when she says her partner died in June. She was never my wife. For 35 years, they were more than housemates, more than best friends. Their second bed remained unslept in, but their small town community does not know the truth of her loss. She is a widow no one will call a widow, who does not get to dress in black. Their home is now a memory tomb she tiptoes through unaccompanied, while the sun sets on one plate, one cup, lying lonely in the sink. Soon, a new housemate will move in, one the church group found to fill the empty space. They do not know the lifetime commitment she still buys flowers for every Sunday. They do not hear the ringing of her grief clock, do not witness her on her weekly walk to that stone of secret mourning. Her 35-year silence becomes an open casket beside me at lunch. I'm holding in my thankfulness to be sitting here with my own love, soon to be my wife. To know that when I die, she will deliver my eulogy. She will not have to survive on silence. Our ashes will be enshrined in the same urn. Love witness. It was their final visit, the one they would leave empty. The weight of their staffy smile stayed permanent, while the cancer exchanged kilograms for a grave prognosis. Only 2 weeks before, the diagnosis, metastatic. Already, his appetite had waned, his tail a slow white flag of surrender as walks became shorter, turned to drives. A picnic on the beach, their final prayer of salt and sand for Axel, carried down from the car. They hand-fed him morsels of life. He was their only 4-legged witness when Josh knelt on one knee to the fanfare of seagulls and Lisa said yes. Their joy unburied. Axel licked love from their intertwined hands, sniffed the promise on Lisa's finger, the same promise that vowed to him that it was okay to leave, as the 3 of us knelt for a different reason. Okay. I don't know if anyone else who's a poet out here has experienced this, where you have such a like visceral memory of a poem coming to you or starting in you. This poem is one of those poems I can so clearly remember being in my brother's flat and waking up to make pancakes while he was still sleeping, because he was always sleeping late and I was always up at the crack of dawn. And this poem just coming to me and me having to like rush to grab my journal and start writing it down. And yeah, that's a special memory to have, and it's obviously been worked on since then, so it's not in its original form, but that feeling that came at that time is still there. I am where I'm going. It is an art to unlearn that which once held my body upright, to unknow each place her skin brushed against my own, to live in the now and turn away from the then, to wake with the birds and make pancakes for one on a Sunday, to not check my phone, to not write, I still miss her. It is an exercise in resistance, to train the mind to be less one-tracked, or to train the heart to be less muscle memory, to not think about her on repeat, to stop crying myself to sleep, to realize for the first time that happiness does exist without her, as I make my morning tea and pour out comfort. It is knowing a place for the first time, even if it belonged to us before. The dam where we picnicked afternoons away, the parking lot where we made out in the car, the ice cream shop where she accidentally dropped the words, I love you. That was a different life. It is boxed away now. I must resist the urge to pick it up and wipe it off, to cradle it in my arms like a child. Don't reread the love letters. Don't scroll through our photographs. These memories will not get me where I am going. I am learning my face anew, the curve, the angle, the mirror of me, an image I had forgotten. Now I trace the outlines of the places she did not make home. I hold them close, small, untouched treasures of relief. The earlobe, the hip bone, all 10 toes. These belong to me and me alone. She is not where I come from, only a rest stop along the way. I know I am where I am going. My path is unknown, but I know that I do not want to just survive anymore. I want to fall in love with a new woman and lose her within a day of our meeting. I want joy to find me again. I want life to touch me anew. Okay, I have 2 more for you, so we're almost done. This is also one of my favorite poems. It sounds like all my poems are my favorite poems, which is the case, but it isn't the case. I have favorite poems, which is just my way of saying I'm really proud of this collection and I'm really excited to be able to share it with everybody. This is also a love poem, and it's a really special one. So this one's for my wife, who's sitting across from me, listening with earphones. And this is Goddess of Knife and Stove. You are in the kitchen, our favorite refuge, which now, in a pandemic, is a place of worship at home. Here we partake in ritual preparation, each tender act of creation, a holy service of its own. And you, the goddess of knife and stove. First, your blade takes the sacrifice of onion, the pot, the sermon of sizzle and sputter, browning into caramelized embrace. Next, a dash of rich burgundy wine, reducing whilst your fingers add the sprinkled solace of salt. Then flour and water are measured. You, always the alchemist, exact in your creating. Your hands press, stretch, coax, mold the bread dough into loaf. I have never longed to be something else as much as I long to be that dough pressed into your palm right now, your fingers devout in their need. Our home fills with the smell of warmth, your creation rising into something delicious. You ladle our bowls full with thick, rich comfort, accompanied by bread and butter dripping onto our charcoal grey side plates. Our red flowered table is all abloom, an altar of your love for me. I am home. Through this pandemic, I am safe, sitting across from you. My taste buds a choir of praise. And then I'll end off with the poem that also closes off my collection. And I look forward to answering some questions after this and watch my spaces for news on when my book will be out, which will be soon. I'll be at McGregor as well. So we'll definitely have copies there, and we're hoping to do a Cape Town launch before that as well. And thank you everyone for listening. This is The Year at the Slaughterhouse. There are so many ways this year will change you. You will put a bullet in the skull of all the past versions of yourself. It will begin with the sheep for company, flocking to your corner with curious lips, hoping to taste the green of your shirt, a memory of the fields. They do not know what is coming, those creatures sentenced to protein. You do not know what is coming. By day 48, you will have to force your carrion commitment to park in front of that building each morning. On day 92, you will eat your lunch as they inspect the bodies. You will stop counting. Maybe it is day 203 that finds you clotted in your bed sheets, so unlike you. There will be days you will forget that this will end, will stop asking yourself how anyone could become so numb to death as you laugh next to carcasses. Cuts of empathy will reach you as you watch those men trapped in that stark, desperate place for 14 hours a day on minimum wage. From this horror, a lifeline of creation will come. From that cold, desolate building, poetry, gratitude for the year at the slaughterhouse. Without fate's cruel knife herding you into that graveyard for meat, none of this would be true. Your voice belongs to that year you survived. These memories are wishing wells of forgiveness. In them, you have found similes, stanzas, sestinas, the spines of friends' books, reasons to stay.
Encore!
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was absolutely beautiful. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the poetry. I laughed a bit. I was quietly disturbed. It was everything. It was everything that the title promises. So thank you so much for that. Are there any questions or comments in the room? I see there's already someone who said something in the chat. Apologies for my blank screen. I look how I sound. Erin says, wonderful reading, Melissa. Thank you and congratulations on your poetry. And yes, congrats. I love the cover. I saw it on Instagram and I was like, yay, can't wait to get my hands on it. Okay, are there any questions in the room? Okay, Jacques, please go ahead. You are muted, Jacques. Okay, while Jacques sorts himself out, are there any other questions in the room? Any other comments? There's Ulrike in the chat. Thank you, Melissa. Gigi, you inspire me to write poems. Thank you for your moving poems. Pelelani, beautiful poetry, Melissa. Congratulations for your collection. I really like that part where you took a slight dig at Instagram poets. I don't know if it was a dig. Was it a dig?
I guess like a sarcastic one, yeah. Like they can do their thing, I don't mind, but in that poem, yes, it was a dig. And thank you everyone for all your comments in the chat, and really appreciate it. Douglas.
I can't remember the poem, but there was a lovely double entendre where you describe, I think, the bodies hanging to bleed. And then the next line is something like, my eyes couldn't meet it, or the word meet spelled M-E-E-T, but it had that double entendre with the bodies hanging of M-E-8.
I think that was the Sistina that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
It was quite a lovely mental moment of the both a dissonance and an amusement at the double entendre, that in the close proximity of the bodies hanging to bleed, the brain quickly assumes that it's going to be meat rather than
Yeah.
Another one.
I don't know if anyone else picked up on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's one of the nice things with, I mean, obviously a Sistina, you can be strict and literally use the same word, but it's fun to play with homonyms and homophones and variations on a word that can do something like that. So, yeah.
So there are some comments again in the chat from your mom. Aw, that's so cute. No mother could feel more proud than I do. Your reading style has been so absorbing and makes the poems come alive. Aw.
Aww.
And then Kadi says, please let us know as soon as the book is out. Sure, we'll do that. We'll
No
send
one will
it
let
via
you know sooner than me.
yeah, like mailing list, Instagram, everywhere. Everyone will
You should see
know
me at
when the
work
book is
on my
out.
social media anyway. And yeah, as
So,
it said there
so
that
I just have a question. How was the editing process? So putting together the poems for your collection. So having to choose from all the poems you've written, having to choose what could go in and what could go out, versus I remember you mentioned that you included a poem where it had been rejected a lot, but you've included it in the collection. So what kind of reasoning went into, okay, I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna keep this in?
Yeah, I think when I sort of first started trying to put together the manuscript before I sent it out for this round of me sending out a version of a manuscript, I printed out my poems and then I sat on the floor and like, obviously I had some that were favorites and I knew that this collection was going to be themed around the slaughterhouse stuff and the vet stuff fitting in with that. But then also the queer poems and that also wanting them and wanting to find likeness. So some of those then obviously automatically needed to be in, or my like best poems needed to be in, but there were others on the outskirts that I kind of thought about, do they fit in with the general themes, or like reading them next to each other, are they my best work, or can I make this better or not? So that was kind of that, sitting on the floor with all of these poems and playing with orders and kind of also trying to balance between the light and the dark, because I really don't want a collection that's so heavy that people feel like, oh, this is just too much. I don't want to sit with this much heaviness. So I tried to find like a more or less a balance between the poems that maybe they're not happy poems, but they're at least on the happier side, or on the hopeful side. Yeah, and balance that out. I don't know if that answers it, but the editing in general, I enjoy editing. Megan Falley's Poems That Don't Suck course that I am now teaching assistant for, really taught me about editing and made it an exciting process. So I am down to the last proofreading, still wanting to make changes on poems. So I'm always happy to like tweak things and stuff. So some of these poems at the time I started the manuscript were one thing and have ended up being something completely different now. I've chopped poems up, I've combined poems, I am ruthless when it comes to editing work.
Yeah, no, that made sense. That made a lot of sense. For me, I struggle, not even that I struggled. I still struggle to putting things into themes, because I feel like I write so haphazardly. So it's always interesting to hear how other people process putting things together and like reforming everything. And I appreciate a poet who edits. Like poets who edit make buying collections of poetry so joyous. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions in the room? Any other questions in the room? Any other comments in the room?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
We
a
can
lot.
see you. Jacques, you are back.
Am I audible
We
and
can
visible?
see you and hear you.
Yeah, and we are.
That's amazing. I lost the image in the middle of Jacaranda. It wasn't because of being triggered. No, I just want to say it was an incredible reading. I noticed another, I missed the one that Douglas saw around meat, but I loved the pun on penning, in the same way that the sheep are penned. You pen yourself, by writing the poems, and you bleed on order.
Mm.
And that was an incredible moment for me, because you contain something by writing a poem, but actually it's a wild thing,
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask something about the way that these are, for me, your poems are poems of great solitude, loneliness sometimes, but they're also poems of solidarity, solidarity with other women, with other queer people. I wondered, is that something that swing between those two is one of the most beautiful things for me about your work. Do you want to say something about that?
That's a new thought, I think. I think maybe part of it is just where I am in my life, that for a lot of my life, most of my life, I've been very lonely and felt very isolated and like I don't belong anywhere, that kind of thing. So a lot of especially the older poems come from that place of loneliness, isolation, etc. And certainly that year at the slaughterhouse was a very isolating year. But then maybe some of the newer work, with like the other poems, where I have now found a partner who loves me and who I love so much, and a community, and just myself as well, that when you're able to figure out as you grow up, I hope, figure out who you are and feel more comfortable in yourself, that loneliness isn't so overpowering anymore. So maybe that's what's coming through in the poems.
Yes, beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the one poem that was doing something so weird in my brain was the poem, I forgot what you called it, but the one that begins with all the letters of the alphabet. I really want to see it on the page. I really, like, my brain wants to see it on the page, because as you were reading, I was trying to figure out, okay, so where are the line breaks so that I can make A, B, C, D. So the entire time, as you're reading, my brain is also just trying to make sense of how, like, possibly where the line breaks are, so that it does actually look like A, B, C, D all the way to Z. So that's just my own little excitement, and yeah. But are there any other comments and questions in the room before we take a breather and then come back? There's a hand. Ed, please go ahead.
Hey, Melissa, I have a lot of words in my head and I don't know where to start, but I'm amazed at your poems always take me on a journey, and they're always satisfying in the emotional distance that they travel in the journey. I don't feel like I'm lost anywhere ever. I know I'm right there where your poems are. I love the way I'm riffing off other riffs that have been used, but the poem that has a bleat for my unbelonging, and then a moment later, I wrote this down, I don't know it about, but my guilt is kept penned in the dark of my unbelonging, if that's correct. So you just deepen the resonances of the phrases. It's beautiful. And what I really admire is your unflinching gaze. You speak the truth to your experience, and so at the same time there's compassion, vulnerability, but you're unflinching, you're steady, and okay. So appreciation.
Thank you. That's all very, very kind. Thank you.
Hey, and I'm very intrigued by the poems with different points of view. The one with the point of view of the slaughterhouse. How did that feel, or how did that? Because there's a layeredness in the poems, whether it's first person, well, they're all first person, but it's like ventriloquism, taking on another point of view. Have you experimented with that extensively, or is that new?
Yeah, I think that it's something that I really enjoy doing. The first poem that I wrote that is kind of in that way is called A Simple Man, which Douglas published in Stanzas last year, I think, or the year before. And that poem is a persona poem, so I'm completely, for me, it almost feels like a monologue when I read it. And the way it came to me, I wrote it almost like just like a story, or like this person writing in their journal or something, or I imagine it as a conversation almost, so like a monologue. So that, and that poem was written after a prompt that came with a poem by Patricia Smith called Skinhead, where she, a Black American woman, is embodying this white, far right Nazi type young man. So that inspired the poem, and putting myself into this other body was so different but freeing, and also just opened this empathy in me that up till that point I'd maybe struggled to find, in terms of like all these other people involved in the system that I don't agree with, but they're also just doing their job and they don't have a choice, you know, that you become numb to it, you have to, because they're living hand to mouth kind of thing. So that being the first poem, then, you know, I was hungry for more of that. And again, poems that don't suck. The more advanced class is called After the Ode that Megan has, and she has prompts in that encourage you to write from the perspective of something else. And so it was from those prompts that I also started then writing other perspective poems. I have one from the euthanasia syringe. I've obviously embodied the slaughterhouse as well. And I think that after the Simple Man poem, I kind of realized this needs, for this collection, if I'm going to have a whole book about this kind of stuff, not only, but I need to have, it can't just be me and my point of view, like it needs to be full, because I believe in that fullness of humanity and life. And it's fun to create something that's inanimate, imagine it having some kind of feeling, emotion, etc. So yeah, it's something that is new-ish, but I really enjoy it. So I definitely think it's something I'm going to keep doing. Thank you for the question and comments.
Thank you, Ed and Melissa. I think, Gigi, did you want to say something? You are muted. You're muted.
True. I wanted to also comment that there's so much growth that seems to come out of every poem. So from start to finish, I see emotional, spiritual, psychological progression. And it's absolutely amazing to me to realize how much benefit there can be in words, but particularly the disciplined creative words, not just journaling or therapy or whatever, but this particular journey of structure and beauty that has to be embraced in the process of putting thoughts on paper. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Gigi.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Melissa. This is my first time to attend any poetry reading. I've just also started writing poems last year when when we were all exiled in our little cocoons. I'm from Pretoria, so your Jacaranda poem resonated with me very much. What I wanted to ask is, these poems that you included that have been rejected, sometimes actually those are the poems that resonate so well with readers, with a larger audience. And even if sometimes literary magazines or editors, they reject them, it doesn't mean to say that they were not beautiful. And for example, sometimes me too, I've written some things that then I said, well, but is this poetic enough, or is this is this good enough for editors, or is this good enough for this kind of literary magazine, what they usually publish or not, and so on. But then when you share it with friends, they love it. They just love those poems. And I just want to know, why is it like that? Why is there disconnect between what the editors want or literary magazines want, and what your ordinary friends want? I don't know. What has been your experience? What have they ever explained to you? What could be the reasons? Because why is it that with friends it's just so wonderful, so good, so beautiful, but with editors, like that, they've got that kind of attitude.
Yeah, I think when I get a rejection, I don't see it as a rejection of my poem. It is, and as you say, that poem can still be beautiful and resonate with people and so on. So I think, every journal or magazine or whatever, they have a specific style they're looking for, or sometimes even a specific theme that you don't always know about. They just know as they're getting work that this stuff fits together and that one maybe doesn't fit. So I think there's that aspect that we're not privy to as writers or submitters, and they won't necessarily tell you even. It would just be when you read the finished product, you think, oh wait, these are all kind of vaguely connected. And yeah, I think it's also personal preference, everyone likes different things. So there's that aspect as well. And if a poem is rejected, I always return to it and see, is there something that I could tweak? Some places will give you a little bit of feedback, but most people don't have time for giving feedback depending on the size of the place you're submitting to. So I always return to it and edit it. Like, this poem, I have edited it a little bit further since the times it's been rejected. And I think this poem's title has changed a few times. Sometimes I think something as simple as the title could put them off, or it's maybe not the right one. And I also think that some poems are just waiting for the right home, and it hasn't found the right home yet. So when it happens, and that's where it's meant to be. And until then, I don't lose faith in my poems, but return to the work of it as well. And I think if you're able to share, even if it's just to friends, that's, I mean, I don't know why you write, but for me, connection is so important. And like having you say this poem resonated with me, that's what matters. So being able to have that with people around you is almost enough, whether they're out there, internet, they write here, it's all special.
Wow, thank you very much for those encouraging words, really, because yeah, sometimes you don't know whether I also write poems to connect with people. It's not for commercial, or it's not really to just not to impress or that kind of thing, but to connect with people. And I really like what you just said, that you write because you are inspired to write and you want to connect with people. And thank you very much for this lovely collection of poems. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Gigi, you say this is your first time. Welcome to the Red Wheelbarrow. We love having you. And can we please give Melissa one last round of applause?